Hello, North Central Washington, and welcome to a brand new season of Networked right here on the NCW Life channel. I'm your host, Jenny Rojanasatian, and I am so excited to be back on air with you. Now, a little bit about NCW Tech Alliance, the nonprofit that puts together this TV show and today's programming. If you're not familiar with us, we are a 501c3 nonprofit serving 6 counties of North Central Washington. Our mission is simple: to connect people and technology resources together. And we provide year-round events, programs, and resources in technology, entrepreneurship, and STEM education. What's amazing about Network TV is that I have the privilege of highlighting innovators, entrepreneurs, and educators across North Central Washington and this variety type TV show. You never know who you're going to see, meet, or learn from on Networked, so I encourage you to follow along not only on the NCW Life channel, but online. You can see all episodes of Networked on the NCW Tech Alliance website. I know that's a lot of words there, so I'm going to make it really simple. ncwtech.org. If you visit there, you can learn more about our nonprofit's events, programs, resources, view all past episodes of this show, Networked, as well as get connected into our membership programs or an upcoming event. I invite you to consider supporting us and look forward to seeing you maybe in person at an upcoming event. Now let's switch gears back into today's show. Really excited to have a local entrepreneur come on air to talk about her business, Firm Foundations Community Consulting. We'll be back on air live with Brooklyn here in just a few minutes. And welcome to Networked. I'm excited to introduce my first guest of our new season, Brooklyn Holton, Firm Foundations Community Consulting. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on air. We've probably met in person about a year and a half, 2 years ago.
Yeah, right around that.
Yeah, down at Pybus, where I got to learn a little bit about what your business is doing and the work you do in the community, but excited to kind of dig in today and get to know each other a little better.
Yeah.
Let's start with a little bit about you. I'd love for our audience to learn a little bit about your background.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I started out as a young girl thinking I'm going to be a business owner, mainly because my parents did that. They had different businesses. My dad was a serial entrepreneur, and so it kind of was something that I ended up thinking, this is for me, I can do this. I love that dynamic. And when I went to school at Western up in Bellingham and decided to do dual major in kinesiology and business. I wanted to open a functional training facility for athletes that were either kind of high end or elite, and then also just the average everyday, individual who wanted to be able to play with their grandkids. Mm-hmm. And during that time, I kind of realized that my heart around that was more towards just health overall. And so how can I affect population health? How can I affect more people, do a lot of good things? And so I transitioned out of that. And during that time, transitioned out of that idea of owning a functional training facility and into local government, which is quite the jump. But if you look into community planning, you're able to really work with small businesses. You're able to work with transportation, community design, and really create a quality of life within an entire community.
It's kind of more of a systems change work for a much bigger picture. Than like a one physical location.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
continue.
I still stayed in that parameter of I want to be able to help launch things. Right. It was more so that my passion I found was around strategic growth and being able to start from one place, see a goal, and how to get there really efficiently. And community development really let me do that. So while I was doing that, I also I did track in college, and that kind of transitioned into both women's professional football and doing bobsled with Team USA. So during this time, I kind of did 2 paths. I did.
So you're like a professional athlete.
Retired.
Okay. Professional
Not
athlete.
Not today,
okay.
Yes. But so that was kind of 2 paths, and I had this. So I had a really busy life just looking at local government, working in that, learning how to increase quality of life in a lot of different ways. and then also still pursuing my own world of athletics and teamwork and things like that. And so that continued until I had a pretty significant injury in 1 year, both to my shoulder and my right foot. And it just kind of like said, okay, you're going to take a second, and you're going to review your life, and you're going to see what life is like without being a professional athlete, and maybe just going into the professional world. And so that kind of led into just full board local government. I was able to go into that full time because I wasn't training, and continue to find just a love in working with small businesses, working with people, and really transforming communities in a way that the quality of life increased. Yeah. So that's...
Well, I'm sorry.
I'm
sorry you had obviously I had some injuries that shifted your gears, but I think that's probably a lot of the nature of any type of athletic career. There's a transition at some point into the next piece, and I love that your parents, seeing them be serial entrepreneurs, like kept that foundation in your head that you can be your own boss.
I can.
And
it's exciting.
And that can be scary for a lot of young women too, who maybe haven't had role models in a space that can be very insecure. As being your own boss has a lot of insecurities.
And also a significant message that I found growing up was college. And I don't know what college pursuit would have looked like had track not existed for me, because I got a scholarship. And so that is really what pushed me into the college that I attended. And I think now, as I'm talking to people that are, maybe didn't go to college or are younger and trying to decide, well, I have this idea and I want to do this, or what about this tech school, what about this training, or if I learn how to do this, I could own my own business, and whether it's an electrician or something. And so having these conversations about what is the benefits of college in terms of more that traditional training versus looking at being like risk. People are like, oh, I'm okay taking risks. Right. Some people are risk averse, and college might be a more safe option for that. But being able to just have those conversations and say, you don't have to do it the way that I did, because mine's not traditional, I wouldn't say either. But being able to just, one, take the risk myself, but then also have a conversation with people, especially younger women that are like, okay, well, who do you work for? I'm like, oh, myself. There's always kind of a little eyes widening, whether it's male or female, responding to that comment. It's kind of like most people think I'm in high school also. So it's just this thing that, wow, you're young, you own your own consulting company, and I feel like you've done a lot. So
you have done a lot, and you should definitely get some kudos for that. But I think also breaking those barriers, because like you said, you can be a young woman and have your own business, and there's been maybe some stereotypes around like, you can own a business someday, and you have to follow traditional paths. Probably a topic for another time, but in terms of education, right? There's so many pathways. It doesn't have to be 4 year. And also we want 4 year for many of them, because we still need scientists, engineers.
Absolutely, And I did learn a ton, because one of my degrees is business management. So, and with a focus on entrepreneurship, and that traditional training absolutely transferred into what I'm doing today. So.
Well, let's pivot into that. So what Firm Foundations Community Consulting, you have opened your own business. What services are you providing? You talked a little bit about government. What does that look like?
So government specifically is around growth within the community. So there are two areas that I tend to work the most, and that's in something called Complete Streets, which is transportation with community health in mind. And so how do we create movement within a transportation system that serves not only single occupant vehicles, which is traditionally what everybody drives, but also fits in public transit, walking, biking, and wheelchair users. So really creating a transportation system for everybody. So if you design for the youngest and the oldest, you're probably designing for everybody. And so with my health background, with my kinesiology degree, I was able to look at health in all policy. And so developing Complete Streets policies. I've written one for Wenatchee, and it actually is a nation-leading policy that got scored from the Complete Streets, the National Complete Streets Coalition, got a perfect score, and so it's used as a case study. So Wenatchee's on the map for that.
Congratulations, and kudos to the city for investing.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, that was when I was working at the cities, so they definitely supported that process. And then through my company, I've maintained that process. And so I'm working with the city of Moses Lake right now on some Complete Streets work. And then also next to that kind of transportation health aspect is also the community and economic development. So a lot of my clients are both within government, but then also quasi-government. So organizations like the North Central Washington Economic Development District. One's working with small business in kind of a unique way, maybe receiving grant funding from the state to provide technical assistance, or working on different programs that small business owners can go through to gain skills, gain access, broaden their network, learn how to do different types of marketing or development within their company. So it's kind of broad within the government idea, but that sort of how do we strategize around creating a community, whether it's the way people move or the way people interact with the facilities and amenities that are available.
Thank you for kind of walking me through those connections. So, tying into your work with the EDD, and like you said, that's a kind of nonprofit quasi-government connection. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about kind of what fuels you, whether it's the streets projects with the cities or the EDD in this work.
I would say I've gotten feedback that this is not the way I should do business, but it is to put myself out of business. I would really like to build capacity within the client that I'm working with to the point where they can be self-sufficient and not need me. And I think that has been the most motivating, in that there are things that I don't find boring. Like, I love writing policy. I love helping someone write a strategic plan. I love taking and synthesizing a whole bunch of brainstorm ideas and creating it into something more technical. So those pieces are usually what people don't want to do. They're the less colorful, less fun. But having that as a starting place or a foundation, that company, organization, small business could then take it as a resource and move forward and say, we know how to develop this, we reference this, this is our plan of how to move forward. And that lets them, especially if they're a part of developing that, kind of live without me needing to be a part of it. And so really when I do work, whether it's with a small business, if we're looking at a new financial structure or looking at a marketing plan, it's not something that I just say, oh, thanks for your information, I'm going to go develop this and bring it back. I'm sitting with them, we're reviewing a whole bunch, they're really involved in the process. And some do it kicking and screaming, some are super excited, some are crying. It's like there's a lot of emotion in that too, because they have so much ownership in it. But once they're done, they understand why it's written the way it's written, and they've contributed to the content of it. So then I can give that back, and they can move forward empowered and on their own, and not something where they have to call me like, I'm stuck, can you tell me my login? They do all of those pieces so I can hand it off.
And then they can own it for the next project because they built the skills for how to develop that.
Absolutely.
So less about kind of an ongoing monthly client services where you're locking in for years, which a lot of professional services do. It's really more kind of project or
project would be a good way to think about it. I do have some clients that are ongoing because of the type of service that we do, or because one example would be a nonprofit if we're doing executive leadership support. So I might be just an on-call client where the executive director has a question, or hey, I have a process question, or hey, we're looking at developing a new policy, can you help with that? So we might have an ongoing open contract, but it would be more so on-call as needed. So that's available to them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to head out to a quick commercial break, but don't go too far. We'll be back on air on the NCW Life channel. And welcome back to Network TV for part 2 of our segment here with Brooklyn Holton with Firm Foundations Community Consulting. I had so much fun learning about you and your business during that first half. I'd like to dive in more about the work Firm Foundations is doing. I know you have a project you're working on right now, a new project with the City of Wenatchee.
Yes. So overall with the City of Wenatchee, we work with them for community outreach. So no matter what project they have going on, if they need the community to know about it, if they need it translated in Spanish, we support them with that. Under that contract, we also work with them to increase just awareness or accessibility around city services within the community. And so one of those projects is making available to small businesses sort of a 101. What does it mean to be a small business, whether you're new or you want to grow in the city of Wenatchee? And so we are working with both English and Spanish speaking business owners to let them know how do you, what is the licensing process within the city? How do you maintain your licensing, or how do you work with permitting? If you want to expand your business, what does that look like? If you want to expand physically, right? So if your space, you want to explore knocking down a wall or adding a kitchen, and then also just letting them know what is a really easy kind of 101 step process to say, do I even need a business license within the city of Wenatchee? If you're opening a nonprofit, you don't have to. So these videos are going to be short clips, and thank you to the Tech Alliance for offering your space for them. So anybody viewing them will see your beautiful space as that background, and they'll be able to know kind of first steps, where to go one place to really learn how to open, scale a small business or even a nonprofit, something like that within the city. So that's a specific project that we're doing with them that's really fun, and I'm excited to be able to bring in other small business owners so that people are seeing faces of their colleagues. It's not just me saying, hey, I know all this information, but it's getting to have firsthand individuals that have gone through that process.
Right. I love that approach. Instead of having the city articulate it or be the spokesperson, they do an incredible job here. And obviously they know the process, but to have other entrepreneurs tell that story, I think I'm sure it'll be much more relatable, authentic.
And a different language too, right?
Right.
At the city, we're so used to speaking in language that is the code, right? Or like kind of the legalese, really legal language. And so being able to kind of break it down into something more digestible and, okay, that was made so simple. I'm so glad they said it that way. Yeah.
And that's such a barrier for people when they look at things like permits. They can get overwhelmed and then not even start in that process when maybe they're have an incredible idea that would bring so much value.
Or even know that they should have had a permit. And so now they're going through a whole process of having to go backwards and looking at delays and different fees and things like that. And so we really want to support small business owners in the city that in a way that benefits them, in a way that's meaningful to them, and just be a resource for that. So it's going to live on Wenatchee's, they have a Wenatchee TV channel on YouTube, and so it'll live on that. And be short clips that can be shared, and there'll be links and more descriptions and information. So hopefully be a really valuable resource.
It sounds like it's going to be, and I'll kind of pivot off my list here a minute because this is something the Tech Alliance has looked at. Let's talk a little bit about why a video content instead of a flyer.
Yeah.
Why that change and kind of the shift in marketing to be a lot more video content.
Yeah, so part of that allows us to engage, I think, the audience, both in the business owners that are in the video and the audience of individuals that are coming in. It lets it be more dynamic. I think there's a really strong benefit and kind of trustworthiness within the community when you see familiar faces. I don't know how effective the flyer world really is anymore. I think we use them as a traditional practice, but it's similar to when we used to write notices in the paper. It's just not as commonly used. It's not something that I think people really tape onto their refrigerators anymore or sit down with a family and say, what are all the things going on? And so being able to have it dynamic, it lets it be shared on different platforms. It lets people save it. And also if we need to kind of edit or update information, we're able to do that in real time.
Live, because it's
not
digital.
Say like, hey, you have the old flyer, throw that. Oh no, that's the old one. No, don't use that. We're able to make sure that the source of the content is always relevant and up to date. So I think that aspect, I really do think that it also provides just an opportunity for people to come together. I think when you make a flyer, one person, could make that from across the country and nobody knows. And now it's just this piece that everybody's supposed to trust. But when you're together, you're having conversations, you're saying, hey, this piece is missing, or can we do it this way? I think there's something around connection and real life that even if it's behind a screen, people are excited to be able to support.
Yeah. So it pulls them in and
like, oh, that's my dad. Oh, my uncle did that, and also just being able to better highlight the small businesses, because if we just made a flyer and said, here are the steps to being a small business in Wenatchee, I think there'd be a lot of information lost. And I think there'd be some level of ownership lost within the business community. And so really letting them come in and say, yeah, we're looking at the script, like this makes sense to me, or yeah, this is absolutely relevant. It's something I even worked through. So being able to engage them in a unique way, the videos allow us to do that.
And like you said, in kind of layman's terms too, not these terminology that maybe it's not actually used in the business community, but might be just government lingo.
Yep.
You kind of break that out in video, in a video format.
And you can also dialogue, right, in the comment section or things like that. So it lets even other people that might not have been involved in the project but have the knowledge share links or things like that. So that kind of connection piece really goes beyond just the viewing of the video, but it can live longer than that in the comments or emails or things like that.
Well, we can't wait to see the project come out. That's outstanding. I'd love, as we kind of wrap down here, I'd love to maybe hear, what are some of the biggest takeaways you hope businesses or organizations gain from your services? I know you talked a lot about building capacity within there, but other thoughts kind of on that process. And,
So the capacity is definitely a big one. So whether it's a small business owner who's owner operating, getting to build capacity for themselves, or an entire community working with local government to empower a neighborhood group or something, all of our services are provided in English and Spanish. So we are fully bilingual in what we do. We're currently developing a bilingual website. So right now it's
Which is a big
English.
deal.
Yeah, it's just in English right now, but it will be in English and Spanish. And we're also currently working actually on providing ASL as a third language option. So whether it's working with individuals that are deaf or hard of hearing and they want to utilize our services, I'm working with an individual to provide that as a virtual resource. They as an individual specialize in different sectors. And so we're looking at being able to expand into more of kind of real estate and education as well to provide different interpretation services in that way. So our services, our goal is to be accessible. We work a lot with grants to be able to provide our services free of cost to small businesses or organizations that are more on a lower budget scale. So that's something that we just really want to make sure that the knowledge that we have and the experience that we have is something that we're able to share and not have someone's finances be the reason they don't get to have the same opportunity as somebody who's more affluent.
I love that you're building so much accessibility and into the work that you're doing, and the fact that everything is bilingual as well, which I think is something, our community is very much needs across organizations. I know it's something our nonprofits looked into, and how do we do more in terms of both English and Spanish. Well, I want to thank you for coming on air.
Thank you for having me so much.
How do people connect with you if they want to learn more?
Yes, so I have a website, firmfoundationscc.com.
Okay.
And then my email is connect@firmfoundationscc.com. So those two things are probably the most easy way to do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on air.
Thank you.
Thank you, North Central Washington, for tuning into Networked. We will see you next week.